I chose to do my project over millennials in advertising. The way that I kind of chose this topic, I was talking to Dr. Colley, who's the mass comm department head, and she brought up something that I thought was really interesting, and it was the fact that the baby boomers their buying power is shrinking, and the millennials' buying power is growing. And typically, a change like that in generational buying power would trigger a shift in advertising, and it didn't. So advertisers are still advertising like they're advertising to the baby boomers and not the millennials, even though in a few short years we're going to have a drastic amount of buying power more than the baby boomers do. So this site is really examining why there wasn't a shift in advertising and why millennials are really only portrayed in two ways. And we're portrayed as fun-loving, festival lovers, and very like hipstery kind of. And then the other way that we're portrayed is we live in terrible apartments, or we still live at home with our parents and we have bad jobs and we don't work very hard, we're lazy, we're entitled, we need to feel special, those kind of things. So several of these ads, I'll just show you a couple, really highlight on the fact that millennials need to feel special. So if you go to written form and you scroll down to the Coca-Cola ad, Diet Coke had this whole It's Mine ad campaign, and they came out with all of the designs they put on Coke bottles, and they were all individual, and they were supposed to make the person drinking it feel like that Coke was designed specifically for them. So if you can tell, the woman here is dressed very generically. She's very generic. She's in black and white, and the Coke bottle is in color, and it's because the advertisers wanted you to be able to put yourself in her shoes. So everything that advertisers do, it really is a conscious decision that they did that. And then if you look on social media ads, this is a very popular way to target millennials nowadays because people spend a lot of time on social media just for recreation, and they don't oftentimes recognize that they're even being advertised to. So this girl, I went to high school with her name is Blair, and she was on a cheer athletics team, which was really popular at the time, and she ended up with 25,000 followers by the time we were juniors in high school. And all of these companies started reaching out to her and asking her to be an ad ambassador for them. So this particular ad, she is wearing some lovely Crocs, and they sent them to her, and she put it up, and if you can see right here, it says that 1,855 people liked it. So Crocs got their product presented to around over 2,000 people, and all for the price of a pair of Crocs. And I'm sure that some of those people actually bought some. So they ended up making more money by sending her a pair of Crocs than they would have if they had done nothing. So they're creating word of mouth, which used to be totally just between friends, and now they're manufacturing it to be between lots of people. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that yet. I feel like that's a little sneaky. Lots of companies are using Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat stories to advertise their products, especially because now they have the swipe up bar and you can send people directly to your site. That's another thing. Social media is really not used as an advertising, it's used as advertisement, but it's not used to sell people things. It's used to get people interested in your product and get them to go to your website to buy something. So everything is designed with that in mind, to drive people to your website, drive people to your store, drive people to want to use your service. So the research tools that I used for this, a lot of it was just kind of taking notes through my day-to-day life. Like if I saw a social media ad that I thought really fit in with what I wanted to do, or a radio ad, TV, anything like that, I would kind of write it down or type it out on my notes on my phone, and then later I would look it up on my computer and make sure that I put it into my bibliography. So the next thing I really want to talk about is why this was important to me. So I'm a mass comm major, and we talk about advertising a lot. Specifically, I have an emphasis in public relations. That's what I want to do when I get out of here. And so for me, being a mass comm student really made me think, okay, well, whenever we draft our fake ads or our practice ads, whatever you want to call it, we all get together and talk about how the target market would want to be perceived. Because you're trying to make them feel good about buying your product. And I feel like the advertisers on these specific boards didn't do that really at all. And I think that some of that is because millennials aren't old enough to be on these advertising boards yet. We're still like getting entry-level jobs, or we're about to graduate from college, and there's not really anybody that's like high enough up to be a chief marketing officer that can really like say this is what we're doing. So I think that that's why we're portrayed so unrealistically, but I honestly still don't know. And if I had more time, that would be what I would really focus on. I would want to pull in more examples that kind of exemplify the fact that we're not shown realistically, because we're not really shown in any family ads. We're not really shown in any ads going about college. Like, we're not shown as college students unless it's an ad for college, which is interesting to me because most of the people that I know as millennials are still in college. So the part of this that honestly surprised me the most and kind of like made me excited was the radio part. And we have this group of 3 things, and we call it the traditional forms of advertising. And it's television, newspaper, magazine, and radio. So in our classes, we're usually told like, hey, these 3 areas like print, TV, radio aren't doing so hot. You probably need to steer more towards like the web page ads, the social media ads, those kinds of things. And what really surprised me was that radio is still doing really well. A lot of people listen to ads on radio because the stations have those spots in so like the DJs can take a break, and so the ads aren't really going anywhere, and pretty much everyone listens to the radio in their car. So that was what was the most surprising for me. But there were also some other things, like webpage ads apparently are not very expensive, and a lot of the time it's based off how many clicks there are. So it would be like a set thing. Like for this, it's normally not this high, but I got this off of like just an example. So you would pay like a baseline, and then like $1 per every click after that is how you would find like how much money you're going to be getting from the company that you allowed to advertise on your site. So the particular ads that I looked at, these are some that were on The Onion, and I just thought it was funny because it says, please click on our website's banner ads because we're a news organization and we need money. But then if you scroll down to this one that was off of BuzzFeed, you can see this is a Red Bull ad, and BuzzFeed really targets millennials with clickbait. So the Red Bull ad really probably didn't cost Red Bull very much money to put it up there, since it didn't really require any specific materials. Like, I'm sure they had to pay the designer, but other than that, it was pretty much like, hey, well, you put this on your sidebar, here's our money, and then you generate clicks from that. Because slowly the currency for how well your ad is doing is shifting away from like views or readership to clicks. It's how many clicks did you get on that? How many interactions did you have with this particular post? And so since that is getting so much more popular, we probably are going to see the traditional forms of advertising shrink even more. So my big question there is there really any hope left for the newspapers? Because they're already struggling so much. So unless you're like a big newspaper like the New York Times, the Washington Post, what do you do now? Is there a way to like transfer everything to online, and are people still reading that online, or are people getting their news from social media? Are they still seeing ads on your page? Because that's the way a lot of newspaper companies make money. And so that's really kind of been a big question that I had, is how is advertising going to change from here? Because it's not really catering to millennials, but pretty soon advertising companies are either going to have to cater to millennials, or the companies they represent are going to lose money and lose customers. So this has been my project. If you had a question about something I said, if you go up here and click on reflection right there, and then scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, there is a little area that says leave a reply. And if you leave me a reply, I'll get back to you as soon as I can, hopefully with an answer for you. Or if you just had a comment, that's cool too. Thanks, guys.